Hey everyone, let's give it a minute to let others join in on the call. Uh, Praveen, were you able to debug the issue?
Mm, I can say that there is a problem, but I don't know. Means I will investigate more like on that thing, and then see. I know that I can reproduce the problem in my setup. So with the latest master build only. So, but I need to, because I'm new to this Helm way of installing, right? So that's the problem with me. So I'm just checking what's the problem there. Maybe I showed it to yeah. Uh, um, mm. With that guy, I just
Yeah,
forgotten. Yeah,
Rudraksh, I guess.
yeah, Rudraksh. Yeah, I think I showed it to him. So yeah, uh, there's a problem for sure. That I can say.
Okay, yep. So I guess like Rudraksh also mentioned that like there might be a bug there. Uh, so the Helm install was very recent and it just made to the release. So yeah, thank you for reporting that.
But Helm install is already there in Meshery, right? I seen like Helm install we do for not operator, but other things we do Helm install, right?
Yeah, we just switched over to Helm charts from Kubernetes manifest in this release. So we
Huh?
have Kubernetes manifests are now deprecated. So we have like moved over
Mm.
to Helm charts completely. So it's still pretty new and like we were fixing some issues this
Mm.
past week. So
Okay.
yeah, yeah, you as you mentioned, like there might be issues. Uh,
Yeah. If you want me to show like what's the problem, I can show. Like if you want to go ahead, like with other things, we can go ahead. It's up to you guys.
Yep, I guess like I can add it to the agenda and like we can uh, maybe talk about it as Rudraksh joins in and
Sure.
yeah.
Sure. Sure. No issues.
All right, we are almost three after on the call, so let's get started. So before we get a weekly update from Nitish, let me welcome all of you to the Meshery development call. Today is the 1st of December and yep, we are just on the verge of the V0.6 release. So V0.7 is already in the cards here. So it's pretty exciting. So, all right, without further ado, Nitish, an update on the refactoring Meshery.
Yeah. Okay. So, for people who are new to this call, so actually currently like we are doing architectural overhaul to Meshery UI. So we are bringing in Redux and Redux Observable and Redux and all those stuff. So yeah, this particular doc over here, it explains what are the things that we're bringing in and what are the reasons behind those and all those stuff. So if you want to dig more into that, you should definitely look into this particular doc. It's shared in the meeting minutes as well. So yeah, as a yeah, so towards that, like we have been people have been working on that, and uh, yeah, so there are some things that we are taking it step by step, and first step of that is to create a globally reusable components that will be using all over in Meshery UI. And yeah, we have a list of components that are to be uh, created. So and a lot of people have been working on it, namely Aditya, Sayantan, and yeah, Meghana. So if you're into UI and you are into React and you're if you think you're comfortable with this, then you should probably write your name over here and create a component. And yeah, if you actually to understand what exactly has to be done, you can actually in this particular branch over here, you can see that there is a readme file which actually explains what has to be done and what are the procedures that we are following. Yeah, one sec. Am I audible?
Yeah, I
Yes.
can hear you.
Okay. I guess my connection is unstable. Let, yeah, I guess it's fine now, is it?
Yeah,
Yep.
I think it's fine.
Yep. So yeah, over here in the README file, you can see the steps that actually instruct us to how to proceed and all those stuff. So you can look into it, and you can also ping me or anybody else in the Slack channel as well, in Meshery UI channel specifically. And yeah, so actually there has been an open PR that was by Sayantan, that addressed some of the that actually created some of the components that are listed over here. So you can also feel free to comment, I mean, yeah, review the PRs that are open. So the PRs that are concerning this will have a Redux label to it, so you can actually go go to the PR and add your thoughts or whatever you feel like to it. So yep, there are some progress, and we definitely needed some more people working on that. Yeah, so that's if a UI is an area of interest for you, then you should probably jump into it and uh, you know do some stuff over here. Okay, so anybody have any queries? Or
Just a quick note from me that the UI re-architecture and some redesigns are, as it sits currently for the upcoming roadmap, it's a significant portion of the roadmap. And uh, so it'll be a consistent theme going forward. Like Nitish had said, it's a great time to get on the ground floor of what's more or less a rewrite. So, and hopefully a few new designs will emerge. I don't know that Abi is on, he's been working on the pattern configurator or the design configurator. And that's an example of how the UI will become much more interactive, more detailed, more rich, less clicking. So get in while the getting's good, I guess.
yep, definitely. Okay, yes, so that was the update from me.
Sayantan had a question in chat that he finished the app bar and loading spinner. So is there anything else done on that particular area?
Yep, actually, like yeah, the actually the need was quite different. That is the loading spinner that was supposed to be custom to Meshery. And yeah, right now we do have a loading spinner that was created in the PR, but yeah, the ask was for to create a loading spinner that is custom to Meshery, but that was actually taken directly from Meshery UI. So that probably involves some design. So that's why I actually didn't consider it. So, and the app bar, I guess, like, okay, I didn't actually look into the app bar stuff, so I might have to take a look into it again, and I'll get back to you.
Sayantan, if you could like share the PR so that others can also look into that as well. All right. Thank you, Nitish. Next up, we have a demo of seed content in Meshery from Ashish. So, Ashish, you're up.
Okay, I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so in the latest release of Meshery, we have if you log in as a non-provider, or if then you will have some content out of the box. By content, I mean application filters and patterns. So instead of having instead of having nothing here, if you log in as non-provider, you'll have these seed. Basically, seed content basically means that we are seeding this at build time and also at runtime actually. So these patterns are fetched from the central repository, which is this GitHub samples. Basically, this samples subdirectory. Any pattern that is added here will be reflected on the UI when the Meshery server starts. The filters are fetched. Currently, the filters are fetched from from an older release of where we have all the filters as assets. We do need, there is an open issue in Wasm filters repo to have basically to have a workflow that does this for us. That basically these all these directories that you're seeing are Rust code. These are Wasm filter codes. We need a workflow which basically when we make a release, this goes ahead and compiles them into Wasm binaries and upload them as assets, so we can have a bit more dynamicism. So at every new release we can have new Wasm filters here. Currently these are kind of the 0.1.0 version, and applications are there is no central repo for applications. These are fetched from various places. For example, this emoji photo is for example, I guess the image hub is the book info is fetched from Istio, and the others are fetched from different places. So when you log in as local provider, instead of having nothing, you'll have something to play around with. So yeah, that's kind of the final update on this seeding in non-provider, where seeding basically means having something out of the box. That's
nice. So Ashish, for those that for the contributors that are building Meshery locally, you had recently put in.
Yeah, they'll have it too. That's why there is logic for the runtime also. So if you basically clone Meshery, and because we do the seeding at two places, build time and runtime. Inside of Meshery image, we already have these present. But if you are in dev environment, you have cloned Meshery, and you of course do not have content in .meshery/content folder. So what will happen is that when Meshery server starts, there are different recipes right now. One of which is if you run simple make run fast, which is I think what most people run when they are running this server locally. It will on runtime, it will download all of these things and seed them here. There is also another recipe to skip these downloads, and there is a recipe to completely skip the seeding at all times. So you can depending upon what your dev environment is, you can play around. The default is to actually have these things in the dev environment as well, and that is done on runtime. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, I just started a Meshery build, and the reason that I'm asking is because I don't think that I've seen a build that I've done not produce errors about missing content. That might be expected with respect to filters, but it kind of sounds like it's not.
No, that shouldn't be. Are you on upstream?
Yeah. Well, I'm building right now, so we will. If I don't get any errors, then this is a red herring. Then it's already been addressed. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So here, let me share. How rude of me not to share. So okay. So I just built registered Meshery local capabilities, Meshery server, current challenge edge. So I just did a make run local, which by the way. Just seeing all these.
Can you do make run fast?
Yeah, I will. Although I wonder if we shouldn't get rid of that. Like if we're not being consistent in building, so these aren't errors like compilation errors. These are intentional errors that we're generating, right? I'm kind of explaining this for some of the others on the call. We're intentionally generating these errors because Mashari is. Well, has an error code documentation framework. And so Meshery's code base is self-introspecting, and it looks for, how do I say this without using the same word? It looks for try-catch blocks in the code, and adds unique identifiers to those errors, adds unique codes. Ashish, we'll have to figure out microphone feedback issue at some point. But so I did a make run local, and here's what I get: error while getting paths. Now I can do a make run fast, and I guarantee you I'll see the same issue.
Okay, let me try it on.
But yeah, so not necessarily something we have to figure out in this moment, but just something to be aware of. If it sounds like this isn't supposed to be there, then we probably still have an ongoing issue. Is Darren, Asuko, or Rudraksh on the call? Oh, Rudraksh, he's the winner. Rudraksh, just more info, more fuel to the fire. More info. You might already be aware of this. Actually, I take it back. I saw a Helm chart and I thought like, oh, it's one of those, one of those kinks that we're still working through, but it's not. I'm not running Kubernetes, so I think that's an expected issue. So cancel that, Rudraksh, but
Okay.
but Ashish, just FYI, I'll send this over. We could maybe take a look after the call, or unless this is an expected issue.
This is not expected. I'll drop in the chat. I'm looking into it right now.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Back to our regularly scheduled program. Yeah.
Yep. Let me just share my screen. All right. So Piyush is on the call. So Piyush was fixing the Meshery CTL dashboard command to ensure that we return the correct endpoint. So Piyush, over to you. Could you brief over the recent update, the recent PR that you made?
Okay, hi. Let me share. Okay. Like why did I work on this is I work on Linux and I use Minikube, and every time I deploy Meshery over to Kubernetes, I get wrong endpoint for some reason, and like it is like I talked to Utkarsh about this. He said that it is an issue from Meshkit logic, but I checked, but like it wasn't there. Like there was no issue from Meshkit side. So I thought why it is doing that. So I thought it might be an issue from like while we are deploying, things might not get ready as quick as it should be. So that is why we get wrong endpoint maybe. And what I did was like the main purpose of dashboard is to get the exact endpoint of Meshery. So if the platform is Docker, we can actually try to fetch the exact endpoint again. Like we can repeat the process and get the correct endpoint. And I did it. So I just added the same logic that was working in Meshery system start. That actually fetches the like it starts the queue client, then it starts to get the answer service endpoint. It makes some TCP checks, and we register. Like we don't register. I mean, we change the endpoint in the mesh config. So it works now, at least for me. Other people who work on Linux and use Minikube, they can also check. It will always return the correct endpoint if system start fails to get the endpoint correct. I used the word correct multiple times. Sorry if it was confusing. Did I make sense? Like I'm not sure. Was I audible?
Yeah. Husseina, do you have any comment on this? Yeah. So there's a related, so and Hussein, I can't be on audio at the moment. I don't think, but she had, she hadn't been able to give a lot of time to this in the past, but part of the concern here, I think, Piyush, is exactly what you're saying, which is there's a timing issue, which is if you're deploying Meshery on Kubernetes, there's a few things that spin up. It can take a beat before Meshery server is ready for use and its endpoint, its service is exposed outside of your Kubernetes cluster. And right now, if memory serves, I think we're mostly.
Meeting shall decide.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. If memory serves, I think we're mostly just sleeping. We do like a Meshery CTL system start. We sleep for a bit and keep our fingers crossed that Meshery would be available by the time that the sleep is over. And that Band-Aid is showing its age. So ideally what we're doing is, it doesn't have to be very robust logic, but it's really something more like just polling every couple of seconds for endpoint readiness before we exit the system start command. And then we can, hopefully most of the time say, here's where Meshery is at, here's the URL. And actually from there, we can actually open up their browser to the right place, assuming it's not a headless environment. At some point, we'll need to probably let the user know that they could do a Control-C or press some key to, stop waiting and just continue. At some point, it will also run into the case where Meshery, the system, if we sit there polling, the endpoint may never get successfully exposed. And that can be, that's because there's like 100 different distributions of Kubernetes and they all work pretty darn similarly. But depending upon the environment in which Kubernetes is deployed, the type of networking that occurs around exposing a service external to the cluster is a bit different. And so it might be the case that in a Minikube environment, for example, maybe we'll have some amount of trouble getting the endpoint exposed in the way that we want to. We should keep chipping away at those issues. But separate from that, what you're doing here, I think, is good. It's also a workaround to a Band-Aid. And we should go address the root cause. The root cause of why you're having to do this is because we need to improve Meshery CTL systems start. It's also nice to have this so that if you've got Meshery running for a long time, you're on the command line, like, hey, where's that endpoint again? You can use Meshery CTL system commands to look at your current context or switch contexts and look at that context's Meshery server, Meshery endpoint. It might not be up to speed though, because there's a couple of race conditions I think that we experience as people go to deploy, as they make their Meshery deployment. So from my perspective, there's certainly merit in a Meshery CTL system dashboard command. And I think this is fabulous and great. And there's a couple of use cases for it. It's one of the use cases of what I just said. Your system's been running for a month. You come over and you want to know where it's at. You might check the config, but the config might be out of whack, out of sync. And so an external command like this is great. But for that more core, for that use case that all of us hit, which is deploying Meshery in a Kubernetes environment, I would suggest that we need to go spend some time inside of system start and reflect on some of the approach that you have right here and how some of this approach might work as an improvement to system start. What is it? What do you think, Piyush? And does anyone else have comment?
As you said, the main issue is the timing issue. However, we have added 4 to 5 seconds wait to get the pods up. Sometimes it takes a lot more time than that. Pods still gets in the state of downloading the image and running it. So I feel that there is not much room to improve on the system starts part, but like this is more like we can inform the user that if uh, system start fails to get the exact endpoint, you can
Yeah.
run this command just as like you said bandage.
Yep. But you can, but internally you can run that command in system start. Like, I hear where you're coming
Okay,
from.
so okay, I get it what you're saying. The same logic is getting like executed in system start. It is just a ripoff from that part. I have just copied it and made it here. After a system like a Meshery is running, or it has been like a 1 minute or 2 minute time interval, then if I run this, it is going to fetch the correct endpoint. So I'm not doing anything like some other magic. It's just the same code from the system start.
Yep, yeah. So I guess like what Lee mentioned didn't come across. So Lee was mentioning that in system start, instead of us having to sleep a set amount of time and then check if Mashari ports are up, we can just keep polling like something similar with the system status. So we can call the system status command internally and then check and see if Meshery is up and the components are up.
Okay, it's like a loop. That's what we are thinking.
Yep. Uh,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
and maybe we should also have a condition where like the users can exit out of that check. Uh,
Okay.
maybe
Okay. One thing that happens sometimes is that when we are executing this part, get service endpoint, we do get an endpoint, but that doesn't have the exact IP. It has local host for some reason. If we are running Minikube tunnel before deploying Meshery, then we will get the exact IP and the port, the exact IP and the port. But if we are not running Minikube tunnel, and then it will return local host and the port for some reason. Uh, but let's say if uh, if the cluster was already running or Meshery was already running previously, and I just restarted my computer and then ran the system start, then it does fetch the correct endpoint. I'm not sure why this works like that.
Yeah,
It
actually,
is
that's the bug I was referring
design
to.
things.
What happens is that if it doesn't figures out where to reach it to, it defaults to localhost, and that does work sometimes, like in Docker desktop. It's a fair assumption in that case. But when it does not work is when when the load balancer pool is not binded to the to the local host or something. That's not the right term, but basically to the default interface of a system. If it's not binded to that one, then that's not a fair assumption, but that does work out in case of Minikube or Minikube tunnel or Docker desktop. When it does not work out is when you have when you are using another load balancer, or you are using something like Kind with Metal LB or Minikube with Metal LB. In that case, the pool would belong to a different interface. So yeah, that's actually the bug I was sort of referring to, that is in Meshkit. And the fix to that would be to fall back to a node port. But actually the reason, if we know the fix and why it's not present in Meshkit, the reason is actually figuring out the node IP is sort of is also a bit trickier, because it kind of depends how a node was created and what the node is all about. So yeah, actually that's the bug I was sort of talking about on Slack.
Okay. So this is like a temporary fix for right now.
Maybe okay, I am new here. So are we not using channels to get the status from the once the part starts, every part starts, right? So it can send the channel back to you and you can start your measuring, right?
Prevent let me direct you to an architecture slide because I think you are, that's a
Okay.
good suggestion. That's a great suggestion. And thanks for mentioning it. It is wrong. Or like, what I mean to say is like, when you see the architecture slide, you'll see that the discussion is coming from a different vector,
Okay.
which is the CTL and how it communicates with pods. But
Okay.
you're right. But I said that really jokingly about being wrong. Like the notion that there's an event-driven aspect to this, that's what a beautiful thing. Like, hey, how long is it going to take to come up? I don't know. Like, depends on your system and what you're doing, and a bunch of other factors, and whether it's raining outside or not. And so, like, wouldn't it be nice if Meshery server sent a signal saying, "I'm ready," And so part of that, part of that might be we don't, or the project, I don't think we don't necessarily have a number. We don't make we don't make much use of readiness probes or health checks. There might be an aspect of what Kubernetes provides that we might want to look at, kind of incorporating into this context, so that we can use some standard signals to say, yeah, this pod is ready. In this case, it's Meshery server is ready. And if so, yeah. One of the things to consider, like Piyush, you've done quite a bit of work around Meshery CTL system check to both kind of do pre-flight readiness checking of like prerequisites in the system, as well as like post-deployment health checks, right? So if you think about it, like a post-deployment health check is Meshery server up and running, and if so, what's its version number? And that same routine as part of like a post-deployment health check, if there's basically a Meshery CTL system version, that check for a version, that version is a great API to call. It's a very simple kind of a ping test. That if you were to take that same routine and reuse it in system start, this is a better Band-Aid, what I'm about to suggest. Like, it is to do polling of, instead of what we're currently doing right now, which is sleeping, change it to polling, sit there and look to see when we can access the thing. It might be in some cases, like you just said, well, we would never exit because of the environment and certain configurations that we need to work through. We need to work on over time, figuring those out, and just identifying that, like, maybe we have like a 10-minute timer, like something like fairly far out there, but we also tell the user, like Navendu said, hey, press Control-C to exit out. Or like, it might not be Control-C, it might be something so that the users know Meshery server isn't going to die, but you're going to exit out of this waiting state. Ultimately, if there are things that we can do in people's environments to help get Meshery exposed, great. If you look at if you take inspiration from other commands, other CTLs in this ecosystem, Linkerd has a dashboard, Linkerd dashboard. And what they do is port forwarding. And I don't know that that's desirous. That's not exactly what that's actually, I think that's actually what I had in mind when I had suggested a Meshery CTL system dashboard some long time ago. That might be a nice flag to have as a way of circumventing, of doing like a mini cube tunnel. But anyway, we should get a design down on paper. If we end up polling, I think that suffices, at least in my book. If we can get an event-driven mechanism, all the better. We should account for health checks and probes as well.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, anyone else have comments on this before Piyush talks about this? The other topic. I guess, like, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about the SMP. SMI. Okay, pull request. Pull request, right?
I think
my
I merged it today.
Okay, you merged it. Okay, I'm not on my system right now, so I won't be able to like display it. But what I did was simply replicate how pattern API is working. Okay. So similar how we fetch the pattern from Meshery provider. I implemented similar logic for fetching the SMI result from a Meshery provider, which basically like if we will pass the ID in the path, URL path, we will get it and we will make a request to Meshery provider and it will return it. I haven't attached screenshot here, but it works. Okay, and in case of default provider, I also like took inspiration from pattern as well, and that works from the default side. It should. I had to check the default the local provider function, because I was not able to test it out as SMI conformance was not working for me on my system. I tried everything, but it was not working. So it was like I will check when new Meshery release will be there. But yeah, remote provider works, and the local provider has to be just like tested out. I need to test that. I mean, yeah, why this was implemented? This was implemented because of this issue that I have been assigned from really long time on August 13. So why this is here as like Rudraksh told me that people would like to check their results with Meshery CTL because they will be executing their SMI tests with Meshery CTL. So there should be some mesh view, validate view, I guess. Yeah. Am I right, Rudraksh? Validate view something. I do not remember exactly what was the command. So
yeah, I mean, we should. I guess there's a spec which points to this.
okay.
Let me find it. Even I don't exactly remember it. So yeah.
Yeah, Meshery schedule mesh view. Yeah, so that should be the command that will actually display all the conformist result, and we have already a URL that handles that returns a set of results, but there was not any which could return only one result. That's why I raised the PR for that thing.
Comments here. Lee, you mentioned something with respect to GraphQL here.
Yeah, that I think we just made another REST API. Great. In general, we're kind of leaning away from REST, or so there's another REST API made here for a very valid reason, which is to make Meshery CTL more robust. And so that's great. So Piyush's effort is fantastic. It's also part of the .7 goals to try to get entirely away from REST using the Meshery UI client and over to GraphQL. Using Meshery CTL client, still REST, and for the foreseeable future, I think there's like a post 1.0 suggestion that maybe that would go to GraphQL or some other bidirectional communication, bidirectional asynchronous communication. Are we still using Logarithms in Meshery server? And is that just, am I?
Yeah, actually we are. I think the reason it hasn't been completely replaced is because Meshkit logger comes, so you need to create an instance and then you can actually start using it. So it's available in the handlers. So yeah, that's a place where we can completely replace loggers. But the places where where, for example, utils function, they do not have access because they're just pure functions mostly. So in that case, we don't have access to instances, and then we cannot use the handler until we create another instance of the logger. While in loggers, it's just a bit easier. It's a global method. It's available everywhere. You can just import and use it. Actually, that's the only reason it hasn't been completely replaced yet in Meshery server.
So we're propagating. Okay, so we're propagating something that we don't necessarily want to do. It might not be the right time to address it, but like, is now a good time to take a moment to do something different, or?
Yep, definitely. So replacing it in the handler is quite easy. It's a drop-in replacement actually, mostly, unless until someone is not using loggers or tracing or something, which we don't actually. So it's a drop-in replacement. So it's easy to replace in handlers. We should start doing it today. While in utils functions, like the helper functions, that's a place where basically that's where we will have to actually think what to exactly do. Should we create new instances in every function, which would be maybe not ideal? And should Meshkit start exposing some global loggers, which is not binded to, it will always be binded to an instance, but not binded to an instance that is local to the function or something. So yeah, that's something that we will have to figure out.
Cool. So Piyush, is kind of an open question for you to follow up on, I suppose. Whether or not your logger's use was in context of utils function or not. Cool.
Okay, I'm not
I'll,
getting it. Like,
yeah, sure. No sweat. We'll take it to Slack or send
Sure.
another message.
Thank you, Piyush. Before we move on to the next topic, a quick note that maybe we should follow the UX of Meshery CTL perf, similar UX to Meshery CTL perf within the Meshery CTL mesh command. Like so, commands like results could work. I guess that a spec which you showed before was really outdated. Like it was way before we changed the UX of the perf command. So maybe like you could look into it from a perspective of how we designed perf command. That would be really good, I guess. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Do we have issues that are? I mean, this is not. It's probably not the most urgent item, but as long as we have issues that are maybe tracking that. So Piyush, you're generally looking to propagate the UX from Meshery CTL perf to other commands. And so if you would, will you think about opening up an epic or maybe a series of issues just to make sure that we're tracking toward consistency?
yeah, I'll open an issue about making it consistent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Piyush. So on to Utkarsh, a demo on Wasm plugin support in Meshery. So Utkarsh.
Yep. So, okay, let me first share the context because probably it hasn't been discussed yet. So Istio recently added support for Wasm plugin. What Wasm plugin is? Wasm plugin is basically the ability to extend functionality of Istio's data plane by dropping in either OCI or some file. File is actually binary, or loading Wasm files from HTTP or HTTPS based endpoints. So this is basically Wasm plugin. Because Istio's dropped support has basically added this support into Istio version 1.12 in Greater. So Meshery also has support for the same. because Meshery is designed in a way that it is completely dynamic. So fortunately, we didn't have to do anything to add this particular support. It is just there as soon as it was dropped in. If you are running Meshery adapter, which is not more than a month old or something, you will also have support for the same. You won't have to do anything new. If you, for example, if you are going to edit a pattern, you should be able to access that. Okay. Thanks. You should be able to access that particular component in here under 1.12 because Meshery supports multiple versions. 1.12 is one of them. This is the one, and you would be able to access that particular component in here. Was a plugin. This is a component you can configure it. So basically, no code was added, and yet we have support for this. What exactly this is? Let me show example. Show a demo. So this is my Kubernetes cluster. I have some Meshery components running. There is no Istio installed. There is no other things running. If I show the pattern, this is the pattern. This is a design, if you will. What I'm trying to do here is I'm actually creating a namespace. Namespace is called test. I'm also asking Meshery to deploy Istio service mesh for me. I'm asking it to deploy version 1.12.0 because that's the version it works on. Version plugin is supposed to be working on. I'm also asking Meshery to ensure that automatic sidecar injection is enabled on certain namespaces, what those namespaces are. So this is a filler expression. What I'm saying is that, hey, go ahead and basically replace this particular string with whatever is present here. That is what is going to resolve to. Ref is identifier sort of. I'm saying go to services and then go to ns.sample and then go to name. Whatever there is, please replace that here. This is probably although this is quite long, the reason you may want to do it is because first you can just change. So basically this is a variable. You can change this thing and every place where this is being used, that will automatically be changed. And the second is because you can have typos. You can type in test here and maybe you will type in maybe AX, maybe you will have some kind of typo in here. This is completely avoided if you use filler expressions. The reason is that it is statically checked. You cannot have undefined references in here. This is a filler expression, just was talking about it. Now, the third step is actually I'm saying that, hey, please deploy an application for me. What that application is a simple Nginx server running on port 80. I'm adding a label to it. This label is going to be later on used. So this is all that you actually require to run an application using Meshery. So if someone has actually deployed any application to Kubernetes, you may be familiar that how long those YAMLs actually get. You configure deployment. Inside deployment, you have a template pod spec, and you basically configure your pods. A lot of things are actually duplicates, like duplicate selectors, because obviously most of the time, if you are actually creating a deployment and that deployment is going to create a replica set, that replica set is actually supposed to point to the pod. So that's basically there's a lot of duplication. That's something that we sort of counter with this particular custom construct. That is, you can just write this thing and it will deploy application. I'm also asking that I'm also specifying that this particular thing actually depends on two things, that is ns.sample and istio. What this is basically I'm saying that please ensure that you actually execute this particular step if and only if this particular step has succeeded successfully. Basically, the step completed successfully without any errors. So this step is going to wait for these two to finish. These two steps would be will be executed parallelly. And then there's this particular step. This step and this step is also going to be executed parallelly, line 15 and line 32. These steps are also going to be executed parallelly because they do not have any interdependency, while both of them are going to wait for these two to finish because both of them have these two as listed their dependencies. What I'm doing in here, this is the wasm plugin thing. This is the new thing that Istio dropped, and that is I'm saying that, hey, the type is wasm plugin.istio. Name is actually sample. You can actually call it anything. The namespaces, again, I'm using the same filler expression because I want it to be deployed. I wanted it to be provisioned in the same namespace that my rest of the things are, like automatic sidecar injection is enabled, and enabling automatic sidecar injection for this particular thing is extremely important, because if you don't have data plane, then where you would drop, how you would drop the wasm, and that is why automatic sidecar injection is being enabled on that namespace. I'm saying that deploy this particular thing in this namespace. I'm saying that please pull in this particular wasm file. That is a basic auth wasm file. It is a basic auth wasm file, and I'm saying that drop it in every data plane where drop it in every data plane where this particular label is attached, and that is this one. If you want this particular thing to be dropped in other places also, you can actually you can actually copy it, paste it, and add the same label, and it will be available there. This is not something unique to Meshery, obviously. Then there's plugin config. This is basic config. I'm saying that enable basic authentication on this prefix when basically when there is when endpoint is just slash and the request method is get, and the credentials are actually this. This is nothing but, if you would decode it, this is admin3 as the username, admin3 as the password. So let's go ahead and try to apply this pattern. The apply process may fail because my token is quite old, but let's see. Okay, I don't think it's failing. So let's watch the state of the cluster. Actually, instead of watching the boring state of the cluster, you can actually also watch things coming up here. The reason I have multiple of these listed is because if you actually go ahead and see the status in here, you would also see that this particular thing was terminated. So the older data is not deleted yet at the moment. Probably we should show it, we should not show it. The reason, the usefulness of this particular thing, the stale data, is that you can actually check that how this particular thing died, and you can actually see, I hope the font is visible, it's quite small, but it's saying that it was terminated, and this is what exactly happened. So let's see if things are ready. So I asked for Istio deployment, and yeah, quickly.
Apologies, just to Navendu time check. We've got hopefully we've got a helm issue that kind of is affecting people around. So apologies, Utkarsh. I didn't mean to cut you off cold, and don't, yeah, please continue. I just wanted to.
Yep. So let's wind this off quickly. Okay, it has password cached. Yep. So if you have run Nginx server on your system, you definitely don't get authentication. The reason this authentication was automatically added was because wasm plugin was added to this particular thing. Now, if you would type in admin3, that's the password I said, you will actually be able to access the access the particular service. So yeah, basically this was the support for wasm plugin in Meshery without pretty much doing anything because of the way we have designed our system. So yeah.
Thank you, Utkarsh. I just want to point out that we discuss a lot of WASM related things on the WASM filters call on Monday. So that is a good place to jump in and discuss on everything related to WASM and all the initiatives we have here in Meshery. So before since we are very low on time, let's move on to the next topic from Praveen. So there is a bug when Meshery server tries to install the Meshery operator, which we recently switched to Helm charts. So Praveen, would you like to show what the issue you are facing?
Yeah, I can show. Just a moment. Share my screen. Okay, can you see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So basically, what I did was just a minute. I'm not fond of this one. Okay, give me. Is this running was 2 minutes? Yeah, this is where our Mashari server is running locally. Okay, so locally it worked fine. So if I have a Kubernetes cluster or a kind or something which is in my system, so this works fine. So basically what I did was I just gone through, just a minute. the stop heading, how do I remove the stop one? Yeah, I can see my screen, right? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. So if I go here and try to like upload the file, right, YAML file. So basically, yeah. So basically, what it is doing, it is detecting the Kubernetes cluster. So basically, if I say yes, so I can able to ping to my cluster, like which is out of cluster, right? So out of cluster deployment, what I'm doing. So this is a machine like OCI instance where I want to run my operators there. So I'm just experimenting with that. But when I see like when I want to turn on the operator, so that time what happens, this like whenever we do a helm install, right? So operator comes when we do a helm install for these operators. That time I'm seeing this problem. Certificate signed by unknown authority, something it is showing. I for just to confirm what I did was I replaced that commit with the YAML file commit. So then it worked fine. And to prove that this is not the setup problem, I just use the kubeconfig file and then try to send some command to my cluster and see like parts are running or not, like everything was okay. So there is no problem with the kubeconfig file. Yeah, I'm new to this Helm also, so I'm just looking and trying to find out like how to solve this problem. Because I want to see the out of cluster, like how it works and all those things. Therefore, I'm just setting up. So I found this problem. Yeah, this is what I wanted to show.
So seems like when, I mean, the kube config that Praveen uploads, it has some sort of certificate data. And
Yeah.
when Helm actually tries to use the kube API to install the operator on his cluster, it isn't able to find it and similar something. So that is actually causing this. So what exactly is the kind of cluster that you have, Praveen?
Means actually it doesn't matter on the cluster, right? So basically, if you do a YAML, it's just a upgrade of a Helm, right? So basically, that's what I was thinking. So basically, I'm using a OCI cluster. It's a OCI instance. So Oracle Cloud instance. So basically.
Praveen, you have already uploaded the kube config, right?
Yes.
Can you run a command in your in separate terminal that is Meshery CTO system check?
Check. Yeah, but if I'm running locally, right? I don't think so. It is detecting.
Okay, yeah. In that case, we are hitting the endpoint present in mesh config, so we can actually query the Kubernetes API.
No,
okay.
I'm not sure.
Can you run Meshery CTO system login first? Let's try if we can reach the Meshery adapters.
No, Meshery CTL, how I ran was maybe I'm new, like correct me if I'm wrong here also. So what I did was I just did a git clone of a Meshery server and I installed like a Meshery local run, right? So normally, so I did that and then I install my git like istio adapter and git clone that istio adapter and followed some procedure to install the istio adapter. That's my setup actually. I don't have anything else on that. Okay, so can I do a system login here? What you're saying?
No, I don't think that requires that. Like, there is no need to do that. I was just like, the main goal was, if we were able to check the Kubernetes API, we can do that.
Kubernetes API, in the sense, like I am not understanding what you want. Like, if you tell
Like,
me what you
if
exactly
we
want.
are able to connect the Kubernetes cluster,
No, but you
if
can
we
just,
connect,
like, if you do this, right? So it's a ping command, right? You are sending a TCP probe to your cluster, right? So which is working.
Yep, great. Good. Maybe I should jump in. So the challenge that prevent to kind of repeat the state of your system is you're using Oracle Cloud infrastructure. You've got
Yes.
the Kubernetes cluster that you're running there is that running? Is that a managed service that you're using, or is that just in VMs over there?
It's a managed service.
Oh, okay. And so great. So then you built an adapter, you built Meshery server, you're running, as you built Meshery server and the adapter, you did so locally on your local machine. The Kubernetes, the kube config that you have on your local machine points to your managed Kubernetes service from OCI.
Correct.
And so Meshery server is up and running successfully locally. The UI client is present. You're able to log in. You've got your Meshery CTL client as well. You're able to run a few commands there. The challenge, though, is that your Meshery server that's sitting locally on your laptop or your local dev system is not in, like in accordance with what you're seeing here. It's like, well, hey, the operator got deployed. So did MeshSync. So did the two controllers, MeshSync and NATS, and they're both running in Kubernetes. They're running in Kubernetes because Meshery server that's running on your local system, it was able to successfully connect to that Kubernetes instance. That's why you see that chip there called Previn Meshery, and it's talking to Kubernetes.
I think let me rephrase my question, problem, Lee. So what's the problem is, earlier when I was using this Meshery code base, which was using a normal YAML file based approach, I just upload my YAML file. It used to connect and bring up the operator and sync and NATS in my managed cluster. Okay. Now when the recent changes happened with the Helm, like what's happening is it can upload and detect that there is a Kubernetes config file happened, but when server wants to do a Helm install, that time this operator sync NATs are not coming up in my cluster.
Yeah, there's no doubt a networking issue.
So Praveen, do you so your kube config is also in .cube directory, right? Or is it somewhere else?
No, it can be anywhere, right? So I can
actually the Helm client that we use internally, that defaults to that particular directory. So it's a internal implementation that is yes, it does require it by default. Or what you can do is, if it is in different directory, you can actually specify kube config, and that is picked by that Helm client, and that is the reason, sort of.
Okay. Maybe are you suggesting to keep this kube config file into the kube directory, or merge those things and then like?
Yeah. So what should work for you if you're running make run local? I think that's how you spin up your Meshery server. Can you try adding kube config equals? So basically, add the environmental variable kube config equals wherever this particular file is.
Yeah, I already did that. I can use the context and everything, but still this one is not working.
Okay.
Okay, I can show you separately. Maybe it will take too much time to other people. If they are okay, I can add it now. So what I did was I had I think kube config.
Just as a quick housekeeping item to Pravin's point, hey, it's been a great Meshery dev call. Very nice to see you all. We have, I think, the build and release meeting maybe tomorrow. I have to go look at the calendar, but we have the community call on Friday. We're going to send out an email as a request for comment and all the upcoming roadmap. And so thus concludes today's dev meeting. There are a number of us that are interested in helping Pravin. Geez. So please hang out if you want to walk through this with Pravin. But if you need to go, we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Sure. If somebody wants to debug further, like I'm here, like another 15-20 minutes, I can be able.
I do. Yeah, let's do it. And there's a number of us that want to, so.
Yeah.
As a point of clarification, just for me, a question for Utkarsh and maybe for Rudraksh as well, as a couple of individuals that are kind of been, there's a number of people, but as two people that were kind of focused in this area about how Meshery server is internally using Helm to deploy the Meshery operator. Utkarsh, you were noting that the default configuration internally is that Meshery server will look to kind of the standard location of the current user, their hidden folder, their hidden .cube folder, and look for the config file. But I think you were also saying, while that's the default, like the fact that it's the default also implies customization is possible.
Yeah, actually, so it's not, so the meshkit function, I think we can go into detail. The meshkit function apply Helm chart that uses Helm client, and Helm client, it's the requirement of Helm client that kube config should actually point to the kube config so that can use it internally. It doesn't accept client sets from outside. So it creates it internally, and that requires kube config to point to the right direction. If it does not, so in adapters, that's the reason we actually set up kube config manually. And what can happen, the reason I was sort of pointing to this direction is because this ping test that is actually a server, instead of being TCP probe, we actually we actually retrieve version of Kubernetes API server, and that happen. The method that gets used internally is different. While this apply thing is actually this uses Helm client, and Helm client uses kubeconfig. So the reason, yeah, that was mostly the reason I was sort of I wanted to know if kubeconfig is actually pointed to the right direction, because that's mostly the only thing other than networking, obviously, that differs.
So basically my kube config is in some other directory, not in the, that's for sure.
Okay, so what's the easiest?
Let me show what I want to say. Kubectl -kube config control right. So this is my pod, right? So this is where I'm running. This is the managed Kubernetes cluster where I'm running. So I can do a like kubectl config. I can do a Helm install also. Like if I want to do a Helm install, I can set a kube config equal to environmental variable, like to my download this one, and then I can use it. I can do a Helm or like whatever it is, right? So set configure context, use context if you do. So then I can do it. So that's what I tried all the options, like this certificate and all those things is not a problem with us, I thought. So therefore I need your help. So do you want me to copy this to a Meshery's home directory and see whether that works?
Yeah, if you can copy it to .cube / Can you back up your older config in .cube/config and copy this one to that place? The reason instead of changing, the reason I'm suggesting this particular approach rather than setting the envar is internal again.
This one, right? So you just want to back up this, right?
Yep, I'll probably just move it to a backup and copy this one and place it in, basically replace it.
Okay, I understand your problem. Okay. Right? Done, right?
Yep. Yeah. Can you now open up Meshery UI, delete your.
Okay. Oh, I go here. You want me to start the operators again?
Yeah. Can you delete this in the batch?
Okay.
And yeah, try reloading the page.
Okay.
Okay. Now.
I don't know why it comes up again.
Yeah, that's fine. It picks up automatically. That's
okay.
Yeah.
6 hours ago, I deleted anything. I think, okay, let me do the other way around. Yeah, I just wanted to start from the beginning. Maybe I have already installed something. Therefore, I just wanted to delete the namespace Meshery in my. Okay, now let's see. Product name. So that is there. Now I want. Do anybody knows how to move this top one? Right.
Yeah, there's like one way.
Okay, got it. Lucky. Okay, so this is my Meshery server running, right? Here is my Meshery server logs running. Okay, let me refresh again, right? Okay, it came here now. Okay, now everything is okay. Got it. Okay, now let me start the operators. See, this is okay. Yeah, I think now it worked. I think Helm worked.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think previous deployment. This is different. I think the Helm thing works now. This is a remains of previous deployment, and that's why it's complaining.
What is this complaint? Rendering the manifest contains already exists. Unable to install cluster role matrix reader.
Yeah, Rudraksh, would you like to? Or basically, what it is that a previous you may have deployed Meshery previously while it was not cleaned up by him.
Okay. I'll just clean up my things and then start it again. I think if you keep my kube config in the default, it works fine. So when I'm using Helm, the config file was I can keep it any. When I using YAML file, I can keep it as anywhere. But now it's a mandatory, right? to keep it in a local directory.
Yeah, actually, that's mostly true, but only for the local environment. If you would have deployed it in a, let's say, in a container or inside cluster, inside Kubernetes cluster, this is not a, like, you wouldn't have faced this issue. The reason probably we haven't stumbled upon it, although this is a nuance, it should be documented. Yeah, it's a nuance, it should have been documented.
But for your information, right, I installed this in a kind actually. So now I am running it as a normal, but I bought up a kind server in my local machine, and inside the kind I was just using this same thing was not working inside the kind also.
So you might have tried uploading your kube config inside kind. So yeah, actually, so instead of uploading, so what, so there are two things probably you can do. One is instead of provisioning it in kind, you can directly provision it into your this particular cluster which you want to point to. That's in cluster deployment. The second is actually then you will have to actually flatten your config so that we ensure that there is no reference to other file or something. So there, although this I mean, Meshery does flawlessly works on kind, because that's my development environment. One nuance there also is that you need to have a load balancer, so something like MetaLB present there, because it's a requirement for multiple components of Meshery, that load balancer. So the ability to provision load balancers, that's sort of a requirement.
I think I'm not understanding. Maybe I'm getting confused here. So basically what I'm saying was, so if we have a UI to provision this kubeconfig file, I can provision from anywhere, right? So that's my question. Why do I need to copy it to .kuben? If Helm support it, so suppose as you're saying, so Helm wanted you to keep that in a home directory itself, then there is no point, right? So there's no point of this kubeconfig file upload here, right? That's my question.
Yeah, actually, yeah, almost. Yeah, that's almost right. So what right now happens is, yeah, you are actually almost right. So right now what happens is that the Helm client that we use internally, it's a Go SDK that we use that requires kubeconfig environmental variable to present. If it is not present, it will go ahead and look into .kube/config file. It will try to pick that thing up. Right now, what was happening was, so in adapters, we use the same thing, but we set up a kubeconfig environmental variable internally, not to the parent process, which we cannot do, but we do set up that environmental variable. But in Meshery server, we are not, because usually it is the case that the kubeconfig does point to that particular thing. The reason I did not suggest to add a kubeconfig environmental variable and then to make run local, because you would have faced different issues in that particular case. There is a bit inconsistency in how Helm client wants kubeconfig to be set in the way Meshery server wants it to be set up. Meshery server wants it to be a directory, while Helm client wants it to be a file, a config file, a YAML. So yeah, so that was that. There are a few nuances.
I think according to me, right? According to me, according to what you're explaining, I'm getting the things now. So basically, what we should do is we should get the environmental variable before we install the Helm client, Helm upload, and then we need to set that environmental variable in the code itself, right?
Yeah, actually, that's exactly right. That's something that probably we missed in Meshery server while we do it in adapters. Meshery server does need to point it. Basically, it needs to synchronize the kubeconfig that is local to Meshery server with the Helm client one. That is the synchronization that probably I think we did miss out in Meshery server.
Okay, got the point now. Okay, for time being, okay, but I can.
Oh, nice. Who's Pravindi? Would you mind popping open just a quick issue? You don't have to describe it necessarily very well, so that others can fill in kind of the details. But it sounds like this is something we should track, right?
Yes, I think should track. I'll try to work on it maybe. So let me check if I can fix it. So basically, I understood the problem. So I got the gist now. So basically, what he's telling is like our kubeconfig file, right? We need to set the environmental for Helm to work. So operator Helm install to work, right? We need to have an environmental variable, but by default, if you don't set anything, then it takes the .cube config file. Like that's where the Helm is working. That's what he's telling. Let me check again. Yeah. Yeah, I think I will describe it in a simple terminology. I think I'll just add that into that sheet, right? Like where we have.
That sounds great. Sounds like we could also just confirm that this is in the docs somewhere. There's kind of, there's some deployment docs, like there's an advanced deployments. I don't know that this necessarily constitutes advanced, but advanced meaning kind of custom deployments is probably a good area.
Out of cluster deployment, right? Out of cluster deployment. So where the cube config file is not in the like home cube directory. So those YAML files, it's not working. So those YAML files are not working.
Nice.
Okay. Thanks.
On a related note, so you bumped into a Helm issue or an issue where artifacts were deployed to your Kubernetes cluster using Helm, and Helm has particular behaviors around orphaned artifacts and Rudraksh, can you sum it off?
So basically the thing was that Meshery operator was already present in the other cluster without a proper Helm release. And that's why when Meshery server tried to reinstall it or actually tried to interact with it, that failed. So you'll need to like remove them.
No, this is not the problem, Radesh. So let me rephrase again, right? So I can clean up my Meshery server. So still it will not work, even if I do a fresh install, right? Even if I do in the fresh install, it will not work, even if I don't have an operator running in my out of cluster deployment mode, right? So if I don't have anything there also, it will not run unless I copy this YAML cube config file what I have into the home directory of .cube file. Okay. So if somebody has given an option for me to upload a cube config file, I may not keep it in home directory, right? I keep it in any directory where I need, where I can upload it. Okay. So if I upload it, then the Helm install is failing. Okay, but if I keep it in a kubeconf file, the same YAML file, I replaced my .cube conf file with this cube config file what I was uploading here. That time what happens, Meshery picks up by default. Helm also uses the same environmental variable and it starts installing the operator on the cluster. But if I upload in some other directory, I think Helm is unable to set the take the environmental variable configuration. Maybe we need to set the kube config to this and that, and then like we need to apply the Helm. That's what I was saying.
Nice, very good. Okay, very good. Well, it sounds like we'll probably there'll be a couple of issues opened, and Pravin, that sounds great, man. It sounds like you might try your hand at this item. Yeah. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and one more question means like if I want to set things up for like some problems I have in setting up, like whom to contact, like I can just discuss on like Slack or discuss. That's normally confuses me like a lot.
Yeah, the community is slightly confused on it. So the Discuss forum is relatively new for the community at large. It is really where we're trying to push all of us, like I wouldn't say people, but I would say, all of us to go use it, because like Utkarsh can tell you, well, as an example, just since he's here, that like there's we're going on account of me having repeated myself 61 times verbally on one feature area. Like, and so the point is like, we lose the history in Slack, and there's a ton of awesome things that have been, there's one, I'll point it out in Slack, but if we ever have a kind of a long conversation, there's this cool little slash command that I'll point out in Slack that we could use to just, so basically we want to like persist things. We want to, yeah.
Okay, got the point. Got the point.
There's actually a lot of maintainers, Meshery maintainers, and some of them spend a day a week or what have you, and so they miss the other 6 days of like all the content that went by, and so they don't even like. So yeah, but yeah, okay. Yeah. If you're not getting a fast response on Discuss, like I think that's fair to like come into Slack and I mean say whatever you want to say in Slack and stuff, but it just help us make the forum active.
Yeah, now I know a little bit people there, right? So I can just directly ping in, like if they are available, they will just respond to me. I'm just onboarding to the Slack. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they will if they. Another thing that's been a real challenge for us is like, do your and this we've said this like to a million people, so this isn't aimed at you specifically, but just like some conversations you have to do a direct message because it's just a kind of a private discussion, but to the best of your ability, do it publicly because everybody benefits. Like, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you. I was almost on my knees right then. Just please.
Yeah. Thanks for spending more time, guys. Like thanks. Thanks for helping me out.
This is great. Pravin, last note, I'll say I think this was Meshery's maiden voyage onto Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. So assuming that you're ultimately successful here and kind of Meshery's doing its thing, we might want to update the compatibility matrix for the Kubernetes platforms that Meshery is compatible with. So this is
no, basically, let me give you a history, right? So we support like Kubernetes managed clusters, right? So where we have a bare metal like a OCI, and we bring up the Kubernetes into that platform, right? OCI instance. Okay, so it's just it's like a bare metal where you run a Kubernetes, right? So that's it. The OCI is just an instance type.
Oh yeah. Oh, gotcha. Yep. Okay. So
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so you're not using a managed Kubernetes service, rather you're using. I mean, Refe might offer. Refe might offer. Okay.
No, Refe provides all three options. Like you can have, we can deploy a bare metal and convert it to a Kubernetes cluster, or like you can use a EKS or GCP or whatever it is. So that is the next. But what I'm using is a OCI instance, just like a bare VM. So where we bring up the like a managed Refe Kubernetes cluster there, and I'm just using your Meshery to connect and run the operator there and like experiment with that. It's nothing to do with the OCI is a managed cluster.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough. All right, gents.
Sure.
Pravin, that was great. Catch you guys next time. Catch you guys on the next call.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Bye.
Well, see you guys.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.